Choice, your creative superpower. We have the power to manifest as we dedicate attention to our thoughts, but often miss opportunity to achieve the greatest good. Your superpower is waiting to be unleashed to unlock a fuller, more rewarding world for all. Join us every Thursday at noon Mountain Time for Choice, your creative superpower with Zoe Muro. And now, here's Zoe.
Hello, folks. Welcome to the New Thought Media Network. My name is Zoe Muro, and I am delighted and honored to be your host for Choice, your creative superpower. Coming to you from Oakland, California, each Thursday at 12 noon Mountain Time, 11 a.m. Pacific. We are here to explore how you can wield your superpower for the greatest good and co-create a life experience that is most fulfilling. If you're coming back, it's great to see you here again. And if this is your first time here, well, welcome. I'm delighted that you're tuned in. I'm a religious science practitioner with the New Thought Media Network, as well as a transformational coach. Both my ministry as a practitioner and my mission as a coach are to help people live their lives to the fullest. Today, in episode 58, we'll be exploring the relationship between choice and healing. Now, this is a topic I have had on my to-do list for a very long time. As you've heard me say so many times before, how we define something plays an important part. Yeah, plays an integral part in the choices that we make. And of course, how we define something is a choice in and of itself. So let's start there. I would be willing to bet that anyone watching or listening to this episode has a definition in mind for healing. Dictionary definition for healing presents a fairly wide interpretation in and of itself. Check this out. Okay, so healing. To make free from injury or disease, to make well again, to restore to health, to mend, to cause an undesirable condition to be overcome, to make sound or whole, to restore to original purity or integrity. Now, I group these definitions into two categories. Well, actually, let me put this back up again. There we go. Okay, so I group this into two different categories. The first four being primarily physically oriented, with the remainder being more spiritually or emotionally oriented. And I mean, honestly, the distinctions are mine that I'm making here, not the dictionaries. And even I will sometimes move them back and forth because it's very difficult, if not impossible, to take something that is physical, take something that is emotional, take something that is spiritual, and say that they are completely separate. Generally does not work that way. And that is actually at the heart of this discussion, is it not? I did want to take some time, though, to think about what healing means to you. Well, not right now, but be aware as we go through this exploration that your perception of what healing is and what types of healing are possible can definitely affect your outcome. Hello, Shay. Good to see you. All right. So, for those of you who know me, whether personally or through this show, you'll know that I am very open about my life and about my beliefs. You also know that I speak my mind. It's not an attempt to get anyone to agree with me, but it's because it's important for me to be open and honest. And this topic, this one I find really challenging. We've spoken many times about how changing your thinking can change your life. So let's address the elephant in the room. Do I personally believe that it is possible to physically heal through the power of thought? Got to have a drum roll here. That was my poor attempt at a drum roll. And the answer is absolutely. Sometimes. I have to be honest, right? As of today, as I record this, I don't believe that I can think my way past a broken bone, repairing the image, the damage just through my own thoughts. But I definitely believe that at the very least, negative thinking can inhibit that healing, while positive thinking can improve that healing. There's much more to this, and we'll get into this as we go along. But a very simple, and I believe an easily verifiable example is think about the meeting you don't want to take or the discussion you don't want to have. Think about a time when you were faced with one of those situations and recall how your thoughts about the upcoming event physically played out in your body. Sweaty palms, increased heart rate, shallow breathing, maybe even stomach upset. None of those was physically caused by the meeting or conversation. I mean, they hadn't even taken place yet. But our thoughts fed the same kind of information to our brain that it would receive if we were facing an actual present danger of some sort. On the opposite end of the spectrum, think of how your body reacted to thoughts of an upcoming celebration or an event that you were just delighted to take part in. There was a spring in your step, a lightness, an energetic vibration that uplifted and invigorated. We'll be talking more about energy. It's an important part of healing. Again, nothing in the upcoming event that was a pleasant one brought about any of those physical changes. It's all from our thoughts. Now, I'm not going to get into a big exploration of the workings of the sympathetic and parasympathetic systems in the body, primarily because it would take forever. But suffice it to say that the amount of research that shows how much our thinking affects our physiology, it just grows and grows. And I'll encourage you to explore the many, many books about healing that are out there. And, folks, this is one of those situations where you have to choose what makes sense to you, what reads well. And I don't mean just the words. I mean, what resonates with you. There are a number of books. For example, Dr. Lisa Rankin, who's an MD, wrote the book called Your Body Keeps the Score. I think I got that one right. Nope, that was the wrong one. I don't have that book listed here. Oh, well. Anyway, there it is. Mind Over Medicine. I knew I had it written down someplace. Mind Over Medicine by Dr. Lisa Rankin. Another MD, Dr. Bessel van der Kolk, wrote a book called Your Body Keeps the Score. And there's another book. This one was not written by a doctor. This is by Barbara Hoberman Levine. She wrote, Your Body Believes Every Word You Say. In her book, Ms. Levine addresses both the physical and the metaphysical. And that might be off-putting to some people who are looking for a purely scientific treatise. But I want to suggest that, while we may see scientific discoveries and explanations as being factual, they merely represent what we believe to be true based on the results of scientific method, which is described in this way. Okay, scientific method is the principles and procedures for the systematic pursuit of knowledge, and they involve the recognition and formulation of a problem, collection of data through observation and experiment, and the formulation and testing of hypotheses. Okay, fair enough. However, it is not uncommon that what was deemed as being factual knowledge in the past, we now look upon as being either in error or legend or even myth, not because we weren't intelligent enough before, but through ignorance. We lacked access to pertinent data. In my lifetime alone, we have learned so much more about the earth and about the creatures that inhabit it now and in the past, and it seems almost futile to write a scientific text these days, given the discoveries that are uncovered every day. Unless we recognize that science is only as good as the available data, it's only as good as the means to analyze that data, and it's only as good as the willingness to be open to previously unheard of, even unbelievable explanations. And I'm going on kind of a bit of a sidetrack here, but I want to always be open to possibilities and not limit my explorations through bias. And believe me, even scientists fall prey to their own intellectual biases at times. When I was a boy, I loved going to the Museum of Natural History in New York City. Actually, I still do. I just don't get there very often. I was fascinated by the dinosaur skeletons in particular. These were painstakingly excavated and reassembled over the years. Unfortunately, because scientists at that time believed dinosaurs were the predecessors of current-day reptiles, they made assumptions as to how they functioned, and even when the physical evidence contradicted their beliefs, they still held steadfast to their thinking. The most infamous for me, this was something really fascinating. We always thought of dinosaurs as being slow, lumbering beasts. And despite the fact that the way their limbs attached to their bodies was inconsistent with reptiles and their bone structures didn't conform, scientists, even to the point of breaking bones and reassembling them in a way that matched their belief, would hold on to this erroneous idea. So science is always evolving. Now, why did I get into that whole big thing? I got into that because the topic of healing is controversial, it's divisive, it's exciting. We are learning more and more all the time. And the funny thing is that some of the things that we, quote unquote, are learning are actually things that have been known through humankind for quite a long time. For example, while the definition of healing included that to heal can be a cure, there are a number of ways to consider healing that don't necessarily involve a cure at all. I want you to consider some dimensions and perspectives on healing. I know this is a big slide, but let's go through this. It's important. So, different dimensions and perspectives of healing. The physical, okay, the one we're most probably think of most often: the recovery and repair of the body, emotional, recovering from emotional or psychological wounds, mental, improving mental health and well-being, social, repairing and rebuilding social connections and relationships, and spiritual, restoration of a person's sense of purpose, inner peace, and connection to a higher power or a broader sense of existence. And then these last couple: self-healing, an individual's capacity to take an active role in their healing journey, and healing as a holistic process. Healing seen as a process that encompasses physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual dimensions. In all likelihood, you've experienced one or more of the first 5 of these in your life. I want to call your attention to the last 2, though, which aren't dimensions of healing as much as they are perspectives on healing. And they become extremely important in our exploration today. The physical dimension of healing, of course, is one that we're all familiar with. I mean, you cut your finger, assuming that it's not something that requires stitches and hasn't become infected, it heals basically without any intervention. Why? Because that's the way our bodies are programmed. Even if infection is present, the body will immediately set about working to combat the infection. It's a natural process. It's built into us. It's literally built into us. When it comes to choice, the majority of the choices we can make regarding a small injury of this sort are more in the realm of avoiding certain actions rather than doing something. I mean, avoiding getting it dirty, avoiding overuse while it heals, avoiding picking at it. You get the idea. With physical healing, we can be our own best friend or our own worst enemy. And quite honestly, that applies to a variety of types of healing. As to what we choose to do, now there's all of the instructions for caring for a wound or an injury, or dealing with yourself post-surgery, for example, like resting, taking the medication, physical therapy, eating well, getting the proper rest. In fact, we have a significant part to play in healing, and our choices can be key to our recovery in many cases. Now, recall that I said I believe in physical healing through our thoughts, but I felt it didn't always apply. Let's look at 2 examples: the aforementioned cut finger and headaches. I just happen to deal with both of these on a regular basis. I don't know why, but I wind up with a lot of cuts, usually paper cuts. Maybe it's all the books. I don't know. But anyway, spoken about the cut, but I also want to talk about what thought could affect my ability to heal from a headache. And this is where I believe, and I can't stress enough that this is my perspective as of today, where I believe the distinction between what can and what cannot be healed through thought alone lies in the initial cause of what we wish to heal. I know, for me, after many, many tests and probes and scans, that a significant cause of most of my headaches is stress. Plain and simple. Oh, it's definitely true. Dietary choices, inadequate sleep, dehydration, eye strain, all of those things contribute to headaches, no question. But the fact remains that stress is the leading culprit for me. That ain't physical, which means the solution is ultimately not physical either. don't get me wrong, medication definitely can take the edge off, but the primary cause still needs to be addressed. So often we can get fixated on the concept of a cure without understanding what's really underneath it all. And a cure is possible in many, many cases. But sometimes a different aspect of healing has to occur first. Now, I believe that an illness or a condition that we can cause through our thoughts can most certainly be healed through our thoughts as well. Dis-ease sounds a lot like stress, doesn't it? You know, the fact is, when the word disease was first used, it literally referred to a lack of ease or comfort, which is far different from the way we use it today to refer to sickness or problems with bodily function, for example. Of course, if we allow our body to suffer from acute chronic stress for too long without addressing it, damage can become debilitating, even life-threatening. I mentioned energy earlier. It is extremely important to consider that healing is an energetic activity. Whether we're talking about the physical energy that the body requires to knit together tissue or to fight an infection, or the mental energy of energy versus confidence. Okay. Healing is about channeling our energies appropriately. So, another key choice that affects healing is our choosing to understand the underlying causes and then choosing to address those causes. This is the self-healing that I had spoken of earlier. Now, with this in mind, it is important to focus on the last item I had listed in the perspectives on healing, which was healing as a healing as a holistic process. Seeing healing as a holistic process means that we see that it encompasses the physical, the emotional, the mental, and spiritual dimensions. Considering that our well-being is not found in just one aspect of life, it makes sense that healing would be an amalgam as well. Now, I was asked recently about who's a hero of mine. And I didn't really have an answer at the time because I don't find the idea of heroism to be found in the headlines and in fame. I find it in the everyday. But I was reminded as I prepared for this episode of a book that I read by the actor Christopher Reeve, which he spoke candidly and very profoundly about his paralysis and his life following his accident. You know, it was his fierce belief in hope and healing that drew me to him. Not his efforts to heal physically, but his recognition of how precious life is and the opportunities that it still presented to him, and how he was able to heal himself and find purpose and success despite adversity. Let me share something that he said here. Excuse me. He said, at some time, often when we least expect it, we all have to face overwhelming challenges. When the unthinkable happens, the lighthouse is hope. Once we find it, we must cling to it with absolute determination, When we have hope, we discover powers within ourselves we may have never known. The power to make sacrifices, to endure, to heal, and to love. Once we choose hope, everything is possible. This was his heart, his intellect, and his spirit all working together to regain purpose and to find meaning where others would despair. I call that healing with a capital H. I want to return to an earlier slide, specifically to look at certain items in the last three items in the bottom half. Okay. To cause an undesirable condition to be overcome, to make sound or whole, to restore to original purity or integrity. What does it mean to overcome something? What does it mean to make something sound or whole? Most intriguing to me is the idea of restoration to original purity or integrity. But each of these speaks to a different aspect of healing than the commonplace meaning of cure. For those of you who haven't already done so, I'll encourage you to watch the episodes I did on wellness. Healing has a lot in common with wellness, which is reasonable, of course. But just as wellness does not necessarily mean the absence of illness, healing can often occur without a cure. From my own life, I can tell you that I overcame addiction, but I certainly did not cure it in me. All of the ills of addiction would gladly reassert themselves if I would use again. I've known several people who are dealing with significant physical illnesses or circumstances, yet they see them as difficulties to be addressed. Challenges, in essence, not showstoppers. And they are living their best life possible. Healing. If you've spent any time around New Thought, you've likely heard that there's some version of this phrase: there is nothing to be healed, only spirit to be revealed. This is the way Ernest Holmes writes about it in the Science of Mind text. He says there is no process of healing, but there is generally a process in healing. This process is the time and effort which we undergo in our realization of truth. The process is the time and effort which we undergo in our realization of truth. If you would like a medical doctor's perspective on this, let's look at the words of Dr. Rachel Naomi Remen, medical doctor, clinical professor emeritus of family and community medicine. This is what she had to say. Healing may not be so much about getting better as about letting go of everything that isn't you. All of the expectations, all of the beliefs, and becoming who you are. Letting go of everything that isn't you and becoming who you are. One more. This is from spiritual teacher and author Ram Dass. Healing does not mean going back to the way things were before, but rather allowing what is now to move us closer to God. Not going back to the way things were, but allowing what is now to move us closer to God. Now, folks, regardless of your spiritual or religious beliefs, know that who you are is not defined by your circumstances, your conditions, health, or your illness. Never let anything stand in the way of choosing the life experience that you want. It might not look like what you had dreamed of. It might not provide what you thought you need. It might not feel serene or even comfortable. But you have the power to choose how you react. You can choose what perspectives you'll accept or reject, to choose the values that you hold dear and what judgments you make. Look at life through the lens of abundance, the lens of love, the lens of hope, the lens of beauty, the lens of joy. And you will heal. You will be whole, and you will be who and whose you have always been. The living embodiment of loving spirit. Because that is your truth. Well, it's going to do it for today. If you would like to explore choice and healing further, or if you'd like to suggest a topic for a future episode relating to choice, you can connect with me here, zodimiro@gmail.com. I'm always interested in hearing what you have to say. And I never share anything that you've given me. So it's always in complete confidence. It was wonderful spending time with you this week, but I want you to explore a New Thought Media Network. Go to ntmedia.org. Take a look at what's going on. For example, today, 1 p.m. Mountain Time, Finding the Joy in the Journey is presented by the very delightful Reverend Gina Calvaro-Krupka. Her special guest is Reverend Dr. David Alt. 2 p.m. Mountain Time, practitioner Ken Ludwig presents The Vibrant Living Hour. 4 p.m. Mountain Time, Reverend Brock presents his spiritual toolkit. We here at the New Thought Media Network have as our mission bringing the joy of new thought to the widest audience possible. So please help us do this. Spread the word about the New Thought Media Network. Let your friends know, let your family know, let your community know. And if you're so moved, go to ntmedia.org/donate. Help us make this a world that works for everyone. Oh, why, thank you, Shay. I appreciate that. All right, folks. Let me get rid of this. And let me simply say, I look forward to seeing you again next week. Until we meet again, choose well, choose wisely. Namaste.
Choice, your creative superpower. We have the power to manifest as we dedicate attention to our thoughts, but often miss opportunity to achieve the greatest good. Your superpower is waiting to be unleashed to unlock a fuller, more rewarding world for all. Join us every Thursday at noon Mountain Time for Choice, Your Creative Superpower with Muro.